All right, and welcome into the BettingPros College Football Show. Just 3 Saturdays remain of the college football regular season, and we're going to help you make the most of it starting today when we reveal our Week 12 early picks and line movement predictions. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and it was quite the Saturday for me. 2-2 with my picks, Penn State rolled, and I got engaged. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Scott, Bet the Total Bogman. Happy Week 12, man. Do you think we can keep these good vibes rolling?
Man, I'm hoping. The day on Saturday started a little not so hot for me. I dropped my first 2 of my best bets. You can check that show out on the BP YouTube on Fridays. But I won my next 4. So 4-2 this week.
Okay.
Props were about 50-50. So, feeling good about this week. I was glad we didn't have that loss extend into multiple weeks. So looking good there. I will never trust Miami again, though. I think I'm done with Miami forever.
Okay, fair enough. Our co-host on our Wednesday shows, Terrell, will be happy to hear that. And today we have a loaded program for y'all on tap, the Week 11 rankings and movement reaction, plus an early handicap of the biggest games on the Week 12 slate. Thanks to everyone who stuck around with us so far this season. The college football community we're building here at BP is quite the blessing, and we are very grateful for it. The easiest way to support us is like this video if you enjoy it, plus subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and let us know down in the comments below who came through for you in Week 11 and who are you not betting again. Are you done with Miami? I know Boggs is. And if you want a chance to win a signed Aaron Jones Minnesota Vikings jersey for free, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the BettingPros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any of our videos, and that is it. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure you guys are turning on those notifications so you can be alerted when new videos are up and to claim your prize. Week 11, it was quite a wild one, Bogman. We had Georgia Tech take down Miami 28-23. Ole Miss upends Georgia 28-10. Michigan covers against Indiana 15-20. Bama dominates LSU 42-13. Penn State smacks Washington 35-6 right in the mouth, and BYU wins the Holy War 22-21 on a controversial game-winning drive. What caught your attention?
I mean, BYU winning that game was absurd. I know you and I were both texting back and forth as we were watching it, and it was just insane. The penalty at the end, I mean, it should have been a penalty,
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Utah AD come out and, cry about the game being stolen from them.
Never seen that before in my entire life.
I mean, just... all you have to do is make another stop, and you win this game, or block a field goal, or, it was a penalty. It wasn't a ticky-tack penalty that was called that bailed them out. Guy was holding. So it probably wouldn't have mattered for the play, but if he hadn't have held, then who knows what happened.
Right.
So, that one was crazy. I mean, Georgia Tech beating Miami was just... it was unbelievable. It was not the way that I thought that game was going to go should Miami lose at all, because we have not seen any team run against Miami like Georgia Tech did.
Justice Haynes was shot out of a cannon on that first drive. It was wild.
And Haynes King came back. I think he only had 4 or 5 completions in the game.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot, right? So he clearly wasn't 100% healthy. I just didn't think that with these guys, I mean, Haynes was clearly not hobbled. They were just holding him for this Miami game. Haynes King was not at 100%. I thought no way with those guys not 100% would we see them win, but they did. And it was really, to me, Cam Ward had some mistakes for sure, but it was the defense. I mean, secondary couldn't tackle. The run game couldn't stop anything.
Right.
Not a fun game for Miami. That one was brutal. And, I mean, there was a lot of good action this week. And Bama, and just LSU having problems with a running quarterback again was they have been blueprinted, right? Mm-hmm. So we know how to beat LSU, and it looks like maybe Lagway's going to be back. So interesting weekend for sure. Not everything. You think you've learned a lot through 11 weeks, and then you realize maybe I haven't learned everything quite yet.
Yeah, especially, I'm done with Georgia. I thought this was just a spot for them to get right. Carson Beck is he even a day 2 pick at this point? Carson Beck is straight garbage right now.
Yeah, it's tough. He's going to have a huge performance at the end of the season and a big playoff performance if they make the playoff.
Yeah.
To boost his draft stock back up, because it looks like he's just not the same guy without Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I mean, Ladd McConkey is an absolute unit, and so is Brock Bowers, so I kind of get it in some respects. Looking at the updated AP rankings, we will get the college football playoff rankings later this week, but currently we have 4 Big Ten teams making up the top 5 of the AP ranks. Oregon at number 1, Ohio State still at number 2, and then number 4, Penn State, number 5, Indiana finally getting the respect they deserve. Miami falls all the way down to 12, Georgia falls to 11, Army now up to 16, Colorado up to 18. Boggs, it kind of looks like it's another year dominated by the Big Ten and the SEC at the top.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC is just beating up on each other, right? So it's hard to have a team ranked that high, and Texas is the only team in the top 5 now, and that was with, that ugly loss to Georgia. So Oregon remains undefeated, and I don't think they're the best team in the country, but they're playing the best, so they deserve to be number 1. Ohio State, also another team where you could see Ohio State dropping a game before the end of the season wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. Maybe to IU, dude. That could definitely happen. So, yeah, there's still a lot left to be written in the last 3 weeks here.
Yeah. I'm excited for it, and let's get right into the game breakdowns, where on Friday night, the featured game will take us back to the shores of Lake Washington, where we have a matchup between 2 of the newest members of the Big Ten. Washington is a 3.5-point favorite over UCLA, but the Bruins are starting to figure it out. They've now won 3 straight Big Ten games outright against the likes of Iowa, Nebraska, and Rutgers. Deshaun Foster's team, I know they're kind of the laughingstock of the country earlier in the season, but they've now covered in 7 straight games to get to 7-2 ATS. Washington trending in the opposite direction, though. They've lost 3 out of their last 4, failing to cover in all of those losses to get to 4-5 ATS. I feel like there is once again value on UCLA and the under in a game between the 126th ranked and 109th ranked offense. I like the Bruins maybe in this one. They've won this game in the past 2 meetings since 2020, and I feel like they're trending up, and Washington is trending down. How do you feel about it, Bogman?
Yeah, this is a UCLA team that I thought was bad, but it turns out that they've played the hardest strength of schedule in college football this year. I mean, they've played Indiana early in the season. They got smoked by Indiana, and that was when I was like, I think Indiana's pretty good, but I didn't think we were going to get to where we are now with Indiana, right? So they played a bunch of other tough teams, and they just don't have a good record, but these last 3 have been insanely impressive, the games that they've won. They burned me against Nebraska. They beat Rutgers. They beat Iowa last week. The problem is I don't think they match up well against Washington, and it's a road game. UCLA has passed at a 63.7% clip this year. Washington defends the pass well, 19th in the country, statistically 21st in passing touchdowns allowed, and they grade 11th, according to PFF, in coverage. So Washington also passes at a 58.5% clip, high passing volume for them as well. And UCLA has been 115th against the pass this season. The Huskies also have desperation here. They have to win this game to make a bowl, because the only other game left on their schedule at 5-5 is Oregon at Oregon. Ooh. So this is desperation time for the Huskies. The BP system, UCLA needs 2 wins as well, but they have USC, who is beatable at this point, and Fresno State, who they should beat. So, that USC game is going to be a tough one. It's not a for sure, but they can win that game. They can win this game, too. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing ever if UCLA won this game. They are heading in different directions, but I just think being at home, knowing the desperation that Washington has to win this game, to make a bowl, I'm going to take the Huskies, and the BP system is showing a slight lean towards the Huskies as well.
Is it showing a lean towards the under at all in this one with these offenses being so poor?
Very much so. Yes.
Okay. I think that'll
Very
probably
much
be
so.
my play then. I think I'll probably be on the under, which usually, you know me, like I'm a Friday over better because it's a short week for the defenses, but Big Ten matchup but between two very subpar quarterbacks and two shoddy offenses.
We got the under in the Washington game against your Nittany Lions
Yes,
last
you
week.
did.
So, I mean, I had to hoot and holler at the TV to make sure they got it, but we got it. So, not a bad play there either.
Let's get to the Saturday noon slate. And in Fayetteville, the number 3 Texas Longhorns lock horns with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Texas got back on track last week, absolutely throttling Florida 49-17. They're now 5-3-1 ATS and roll into town with the second-ranked total defense and the ninth-ranked total offense as well. Arkansas comes off the bye, but before it, we were seeing them in games with totals of 94 points, 83 points against the likes of Ole Miss, Mississippi State. They are 6-3 ATS, but they do have some losses against some pretty good teams like A&M. They lost by 4 points in Jerry World back in the day. And then also Tennessee, they beat straight up here in Donald R. Reynolds Stadium. Believe it or not, the Razorbacks, they are 3-2 against the Longhorns all time, winning the last matchup in Fayetteville in 2021. Boggs, if health was a given, I like the over here. Texas 9th in total offense, Arkansas 5th. Do you feel similar, or do you think this defense for Texas is going to be too much for the Razorback offense? It's dealing with injuries to quarterback Taylon Green and running back Jaquindon Jackson.
Real quick, what did you say the spread is on this one?
Spread is right now 15 points.
15, okay. It hasn't moved that much. Old school rivalry game. I think the movement of this line will be correlated to the health of Taylon Green, as you alluded to, Seth. The over, I don't think that's my favorite play in this one. I don't like a spread this big in the SEC where we've seen a lot of parity, which is why the Big Ten, they have a bunch of undefeated schools up at the top or one-loss schools up at the top, right? The SEC has been beating up on each other. And the Razorbacks, they got beat up by Ole Miss and LSU. They let OK State come back, and that was all through the air, right? And watching Texas play Florida last week, those first two drives, I was like, maybe Quinn is just done. Maybe this injury is still impacting him, whatever. And boy, did he shut me up after those first two drives, man. 5 touchdowns for him. Didn't miss many passes. And so with the way that we saw Texas tear up Florida through the air, the way we saw Ole Miss tear up Arkansas through the air, and the system showing just the slightest of leans towards Texas in this game, not the slightest, actually, a little bit, about 1.5 in Texas' favor. Arky's pesky. They beat Tennessee and Auburn, and they played Texas A&M close. But all of those teams, when they played them, had quarterback issues, and Texas doesn't. Even if the quarterback is an issue, they have another quarterback they can go to in Arch Manning. So I just don't see too many outs to Arkansas winning this game or being wholly and completely competitive. We don't know about where Taylon Green is. Is he 100% coming off a bye? Is he going to be gimpy still? I just don't like Arkansas in this game because of the questions that we have at the quarterback position and the way that we've seen good passing teams rip them apart, and seeing the success of Texas last week in the passing game in particular. So I'll take the Longhorns. Don't really want to mess with the total until I know what's going on with Taylon Green.
Do you think this spread shrinks if Green is active?
I think it probably stays pretty steady, maybe a little bit if Taylon Green is at, like if he practices today on Monday and then, he's off the injury report by Wednesday night, then yes, I do think it'll go down.
So you would wait if you want the Longhorns, wait?
I think so. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
But I just don't know if we're going to get that. So we'll see.
Okay, let's move to the Rumble in the Rockies, where Coach Prime's 18th ranked Buffs are now 10-point home favorites against the Utah Utes. Colorado has been printing money for bettors this season. They're now 7-2 ATS after blowing up Texas Tech 41-27. Also catching our over. Thank you very much for that one, Bogman. CU still can't run the ball worth a lick. 132nd in rushing offense. But Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, they've been firing on all cylinders, resulting in the 8th ranked passing offense in the nation. Utah, mediocre at best on offense, 92nd in total offense, 105th in scoring, but their defense, it's legit 15th in total defense. That helped them cover last week against BYU to move them to 3-6 ATS. How do you see this one shaking out, Bogman?
Yeah, I don't think many people are going to like my call in this game. In Colorado, we got the over, Seth, but it wasn't.
No,
it was not a clean. We definitely came in through the back door to get that
late
one.
Points,
so,
yeah.
It was a fumble on the goal line. That was barely a fumble because his arm was pretty close to moving forward, Baron Morton, and Colorado picked it up and ran it in. And then there was that whole tussle on the sideline about the ball. I don't know if you saw that, but very, very strange game from Colorado. But they ended up winning and covering, so we like that. But we're showing favor to Utah in this one, and I like that idea and principle. But I guess my one question with Utah in this game is, do they let that loss against BYU spiral them, right? I don't think that they do. There's incentive to win this game as they need to win 2 of their last 3 to make a bowl, and you have Iowa State coming up after this game, UCF, so those are not easy games. So I think you're going to get Utah's best effort. Also, it's a very well-coached team here from Utah. Colorado's on a nice streak, but Kansas State got them. Nebraska got them. I still think that they win this game, but even in the losing streak, Utah has brought teams down into the mud with them. BYU hadn't had a game with a total below 60 in their previous 4 games, and then the total was 43 against Utah in the Holy War. 31 was the total against Houston. 13-7 they lost to TCU. And that was a team that had averaged 69.8 points totals in their Big 12 matchups before facing Utah. 27 they gave up to Arizona State is the most they've given up all year. I don't think with a potential bowl bid on the line, we see quit from Utah, and Brandon Rose wasn't perfect, but he got them to 21 points, which is their highest point total since week 3. Okay. So Colorado has been getting better, and I think they'll win this game, but I think the Utah defense will be strong, and they'll play within this 10-point spread. We're also showing a pretty big lean to the under. I don't know how much I love that, knowing that Colorado can score.
Yeah, 47.5 is not a huge number.
I don't think I'm going to touch that, but I do know that Utah's defense is strong. They will drag you down into the mud, and Colorado's not perfect. They can get got.
Yeah.
So I think I'll take the Utes and the points here.
It might not be a popular play, but I think it's a sharp one for sure. In the Steel City, the Pitt Panthers, they are 10-point dogs to the 17th-ranked Clemson Tigers on the road. Clemson won and got back on track against Va Tech last week, winning 24-14. They're now 6-3 ATS, largely thanks to Cade Klubnik and the 7th-ranked total offense they're rocking with. Pitt, they've now dropped 2 straight. They lost to Virginia 24-19 at home. Eli Holstein, he looked rattled in that game. Then he left with an injury, so his status is up in the air, as is their leading wide receiver, Conta Mumpfield. He also left the game on Saturday. Do things continue to go off the rail for the Panthers in Ackshire this weekend, Boggs?
Yeah, I mean, this one is going to – I think we're going to see this one open up fast. Currently it's at 10, correct?
Yep. 9. You can't find a 9.5 out there as well, yeah.
Okay. We saw the big bounce back from Clemson last week as they held Virginia Tech to only 228 yards, 14 points. And that's even with Drones and Bashal Tutin did come back. Pitt has had big offensive issues since that Cal game where they only scored 17 points in the win. Since then, they had 11 points going into the 4th in the blowout loss to SMU. They scored twice in the 4th to get to 25 points. They're held to less than 300 yards again against Virginia. We just talked about Eli Holstein possibly being out with a concussion. Pitt only put up points against Syracuse, right? But if you remember back to that Syracuse game, Seth, that was Kyle McCord, 3 pick sixes in that game. I mean, Pitt just didn't have the ball. They had 217 total yards. I think Clemson blasts Pitt in this game. The Louisville loss was embarrassing, but they had beat everyone up and down the field up until that point. They did the same to Virginia Tech. I think that Louisville game was a blip for Clemson, and I do like this Pitt team, but with Eli Holstein being a question, Nate Yarnell We know what he has, and we know he is why Eli Holstein is starting, right?
Mhm.
I just don't like what Pitt has right now. So I think Clemson goes into Pittsburgh and just dismantles the Panthers. I don't think this one's going to be very close.
And you think this balloons up and that we should be getting Clemson early if we want them?
I think if you want them, you probably should get them now because I don't like I haven't heard much positivity about Eli Holstein at all. So
Okay.
we'll see.
And before we continue, I did want to remind everyone to join our college football podcast group. You can sync your picks or use the quick pick feature on the BettingPros sports betting app to get a chance to win some free prizes. Elevate your betting strategy and join the conversation today at bettingpros.com/college. Let's go ahead and shift gears to the 3:30 slate, but stay in the ACC, where the 14th ranked SMU Mustangs are 16.5 home favorites over the Boston College Eagles. BC started the season pretty hot. They were 3-0. They were ranked at one point. However, they've kind of flamed out down the stretch, losing 3 of 4 in ACC conference plays to the likes of UVA, Va Tech, Louisville. Thomas Castellanos, their quarterback, he was injured mid-game last week, and he's been replaced by Grayson James, at least for that one. We don't know his status heading into this week. Their running backs did combine for over 300 yards, though, to beat Syracuse 37-31. SMU is coming off the bye, but they did win 6 straight heading in, including impressive wins over Louisville, Duke, and Pitt. Their only loss is an 18-5 loss against BYU all the way back in week 1. They're 6-3 ATS. They also have the 5th-ranked rushing defense, which could come in handy against this run-heavy Eagles team. Boggs, is there value currently on the board, or could we see it later in the week for this matchup?
No, I like the over in this game. I think SMU coming in with 2 weeks to prepare. They're at home. These teams are going in opposite directions, right? You said BC has lost 3 straight before beating Syracuse, and they had to rush for 313 yards to do that. Thomas Castellanos was, left with that leg injury is what it looked like. Get reports from the ACC, but he was gimpy. I just don't see that Boston College will be able to hang with SMU in a road game here. Extra rest for SMU. Their run defense has been a strong 5th in the country, so you're not going to have that 313 rushing yards, I feel like, against SMU on the road here.
That's how I feel, yeah.
And SMU has been doing the heavy lifting with their offense. They stumbled out of the gate. They benched Preston Stone, who looked like, he was going to be another worldly type of quarterback this season. But it just did not work out for him to start the season. And they're going with Jennings. And, look, they beat Louisville. They put up 34 points. They beat Stanford. They put up 40 on the road. They put up 28 against a tough Duke defense. And then they went and, really opened it up 2 weeks ago against Pitt with 48 points. So you see this offense getting better. You give them 2 weeks to prep. They're at home. We may see a backup quarterback here for Boston College. I think they do the heavy lifting on this total. It's 53.5 currently. It may sink if we hear Castellanos is out of this game as well. So I think SMU gets most of, if not all, of this total. So I'm on the over here, hoping Boston College can just put up 2 touchdowns. I think that's all we're going to need from them.
If you want SMU ATS, are you probably taking them now? Because if Castellanos is out, the spread probably grows.
Yeah, I don't know that I really like this total anyway. 16.5 is a lot of points.
I would like it like 13.5. Give me 2 touchdowns in favor of SMU because, like you said, Boston College, they're super run heavy. I just don't think they're going to be able to run on SMU. That's why I'm even a little bit shy on the total, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's fair. I just think that especially if there's no Castellanos, I think SMU is just going to have the ball the whole game. So I think they're going to put up a bunch of points, potential turnovers when Boston College is forced to throw the ball when they're down. So I'm thinking of it in those types of terms. But
okay.
what I would rather do because the system is showing we're right on top of this line. I hope Castellanos is announced back, and then we see this line shrink. If I'm going to take this ATS, like you said, give me below 2 touchdowns. Give me to 13.5, and then I'll be way more interested in this game. But right now I'm on the total. I'll go with the over.
Okay, so maybe a little patience there if you do want to bet that spread. Let's move to the Swamp, where Florida is a 5.5-point dog against the 21st LSU Tigers. Boggs, shout out to you. I think you handicapped that game against Bama pretty perfectly. You were worried about their defense against rushing quarterbacks. Jalen Milroe, he then ran for 185 yards, 4 touchdowns. After 2 straight losses, LSU, they're now 6-3 straight up, 3-6 ATS, in large part thanks to their 69th ranked total defense that has just been gashed lately. After covering in 5 straight Florida, they crumbled against your Texas Longhorns, but dual threat quarterback DJ Lagway wasn't active, leading the way for walk-on Aiden Warner to be under center for the Gators. Boggs, how do you handicap this one without knowing whether Lagway will be up? He feels like everything hinges on this game on him.
Yeah, I mean, because Florida's going to need a running quarterback to beat LSU because that's been the formula to beat LSU. But the problem I see with this is even if Lagway, they said they expect him to practice today. Mm-hmm. So, but what does that mean? Does that mean he's practicing? Does that mean he's working off to the side? Practicing and practicing can mean many different things here. So, I don't mind some gamesmanship. What are you supposed to do when you're down to your third string quarterback, right? In Warner. So I get it. I get where Florida's coming from. Napier doesn't have to worry about his job anymore either because he's been backed up. I mean, maybe if they just get stomped out these last couple games, you can always see them go in a different direction. But I don't buy that even if Lagway plays that he is going to be 100%. So I think we see a defense in Florida that would thrive off of some interceptions. We saw them do that against Carson Beck, right? They beat the spread against Georgia. Garrett Nussmeier's been turning the ball over a little bit as well. I just don't think that Florida has enough to stick with LSU in this game for the whole game. And as soon as LSU gets up a touchdown, 10 points, late, something like that, you're going to see them have to drop back and pass, and the best part about LSU's defense is his pass rush. So I think once LSU gets the lead, there's not going to be a lot coming back for the Gators. Lagway is a much better thrower of the ball. He's a much better runner as well. So if he's 100%, like if he comes off of the injury report, then I will probably just completely stay away from this game.
Okay.
I don't really buy what Florida is selling us. When a guy gets carted off the way that Lagway did, I think he's probably
he was out there in warm-ups too. He was like they were trying to say that they just didn't like what they saw in warm-ups. You think that's a little gamesmanship for this week as well?
I think it's all. What are you supposed to do when you're down to your third string quarterback? You're going up against a top 5 team on the road, right? Like, I respect all that gamesmanship. I get it. I don't really buy it. But again, let's wait on this game, right? Let's practice some patience. Let's see if Lagway is just completely off the report. Let's see if we get some videos of him running around. Things like that, because maybe being carted off was not necessary. Usually they don't do that for hamstring injuries anyway. So I think Lagway is probably not going to play, but if we get word otherwise, then maybe Florida's got a shot. But I just think that with this offense, at some point you're going to get the mistakes, right? Like Florida's playing pretty good for about a quarter, 2-3 drives against Texas, and then all hell broke loose, right? And Texas just started throwing the ball all around the field on them. So I just think LSU gets up 14 points, and this game is most likely over. So I'm going to take the Tigers here right now. But let's practice some patience. Let's wait and see what happens with Lagway.
We have a top 25 clash in Columbia, South Carolina, where the books, they're fully bought into Beamer Ball, listing the 23rd ranked Gamecocks as 13.5-point favorites over the 24th ranked Missouri Tigers. Missouri wasn't perhaps the craziest game ever on Saturday against Oklahoma. 5 touchdowns scored in the last 9 minutes of this game, including 2 fumbles returned for touchdowns. Drew Pine looked maybe the best he has for the Tigers, but Mizzou still tough to trust as they are now 4-5 ATS. South Carolina dominated Vandy in Nashville last week. The dynamic duo of Lenore Sellers and Raheem Rocket Sanders combined for 4 touchdowns. Still, Bogman, is 13.5 too big of a number to lay on teams that have nearly identical offensive and defensive ranks?
Yeah, I hate the big spread in this game because I think this spread is probably about exactly right. This game reminds me a little bit of how Missouri went to A&M and just got absolutely murdered in College Station. And Missouri's still ranked high, but they've looked awful with the wins being struggles. I mean, Boston College at home, they struggled with. They had to get bailed out in 2 overtimes against Vandy to win that game. They scored 15 points in the fourth quarter to beat Auburn. And then they had the 2-touchdown miracle with a minute and 3 seconds left against Oklahoma. They only put up 257 yards in that game. So, in South Carolina, after being pounded by Ole Miss, South Carolina has barely lost to Bama. They dismantled Oklahoma 35-9. They beat Texas A&M by 24. They went on the road and beat up a very good Vandy team by 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So these teams are just going in absolute different directions. Maybe if Cook plays from Missouri, this line will come down. So if that were to happen, maybe we get this line to come down. Right now, I'm going to wait and see if it does move back towards Missouri because the line is so big right now. But I don't really care what the spread is. I'm probably going to be taking South Carolina just because I don't think Missouri is very good right now. I think South Carolina is playing their best football right now at this point. So
Sellers is a weapon, man. He looks like a weapon
good.
Now.
And Sanders is healthy. Like, I don't think that he was healthy until 2 weeks ago when he finally got the 20 carries, and he looks outstanding. He looks like an NFL-level prospect, like we kind of thought he was
a couple years ago. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I just, for me, I'm all over South Carolina here, and I just don't like – these teams are moving in complete opposite directions. And, yes, Missouri's still ranked because of the miracle they pulled out against Oklahoma. But this is it. This is the last week I think Missouri will be ranked.
Yep. In the primetime slate, the 20th ranked Kansas State Wildcats are 8.5-point home favorites against the Arizona State Sun Devils. Kansas State is coming off the bye, but they were not in great form prior to it, losing at Houston and beating Kansas by just 2 weeks prior to the bye. They're now 3-6 ATS, but have impressed in wins in Boulder and Morgantown. This is also the 19th ranked rushing offense led by dual threat quarterback Avery Johnson and running back DJ Giddens, who's I talk about an NFL running back. I like Giddens. He's going up my boards for sure for my dynasty rankings. ASU has been a great team to bet on this year. They're 7-2 straight up and ATS. Also, they have the 27th ranked rushing attack and are coming off good wins against UCF and OK State. Boggs, is there money coming in on the Sun Devils, and where's your money going?
Yeah, it's funny. I think people are gun shy or out of money this week because we're just getting no ticket and cash information. Outside of Tennessee, Georgia, that's been the most bet game of the week so far. So that's the only game we have public information on Monday, and we usually have it on at least half of them. So just a slow week, Christmas time coming up, holidays coming up. So maybe people are saving their money. But ASU's been a cover machine. You're absolutely right, Seth. But I just don't think they match up well against K-State. And this is on the road, and we know K-State plays just at a different level when they're at home. First, the rushing offense is facing probably the best run defense they've played all year against K-State. ASU did put up 35 points last week, but 2 touchdowns were from a block kick and a pick six. So, excuse me, they smoked an OK State team that has played just very poorly this season, and they've been accused of giving up. So it's not a good win there. They were a team that got the ghost of Cam Rising earlier in the season, if you remember that, where Cam Rising came back and just looked awful. K-State is probably a bit overrated as well. They got beat by Houston with strong defense and Zion Chris going 11-11. They almost lost to Kansas the week before that, but they have bowed up. They beat Colorado. They were stomped by BYU on the road. I like the lean towards K-State here at home, especially with Cam Scatterbo not playing last week and being questionable to play this week for Arizona State. Arizona State's been a cover machine. They're much better than we thought going into the season, but that doesn't mean they're better than K-State, especially on the road. So for me right now, I would lay the points and take K-State, but let's wait. Let's see if this line shifts towards the Sun Devils because they have been making people money. Maybe Cam Scatterbo comes back as well. So I want to see this line drop before I take it for K-State because I think it will move in Arizona State's direction once we do get bets flooding in a little bit more.
Yeah, this is a game where I just wish I could bet player props so badly. Give me DJ Giddens to anytime touchdown. I'm sure it's juiced as heck, but oh man, I
Those
can't
ones
wait.
are so unbelievable. Like I think Ashton Jinty, like they just took them off last week. They're like, yeah, you can't bet it.
Even two TDs, can't even bet two TDs
You
on
can
front? Yeah.
you know what? You could have bet 2 TDs, but I think it was still minus 550.
Oh my
or
goodness.
something ridiculous. It was it's
Yeah.
like minus 10,000 for some of these guys to score a touchdown. It's nuts.
Pennsylvania is an amazing state. I will live by that, but we got it. Come on, Shapiro. We need it. We need it, please. That's my Christmas wish for this year, Bogman. Last year, my Christmas wish was for Bet365 to become legal in PA. I got that. So this is the new wish. Santa, let's make it happen, please. Thank you very much. Let's get to the host of College Game Day, Athens, Georgia, where the 11th ranked Bulldogs are somehow laying 9.5 points on Tennessee. Lane Kiffin finally got the best of Georgia last week, winning 28-10 and handing them their second loss of the season. The Dogs are now 3-6 ATS and have the 50th ranked total offense. Since Bama in Week 5, Carson Beck, 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Tennessee has failed to cover in 4 or 5 as of late, though, but they are stacking W's against the SEC opponents, including Bama, to get to 8-1 overall. They're 8th in total offense, mostly leaning on that run game and Dylan Sampson. But they have the 5th ranked total defense that is also playing very good. I feel like 9.5 is very disrespectful for the Vols. Like, do you feel similar? Do you think bettors in general are going to feel similar?
I don't know about bettors, but I definitely am with you, Seth. I feel like this is absolutely disrespectful. And look, the money, this is the one line that we saw coming in, and it's flowing towards Georgia right now. So,
are they thinking just like a bounce back? Or are they just thinking Kirby Smart's boys off a loss?
I mean, but we've seen it, right? Like we've seen them go into Austin and beat Texas soundly. Mm-hmm. We've seen them come back on Alabama and almost win that game after they were down. So, like, the ability that this Georgia team has. When they bow up, there's no one that can get to them, right? I think that is the problem that you see with Georgia. That's why you see also, they've won national titles recently. They are a team that is growing its fan base like
and
Alabama
Athens
did.
is an awesome place to play.
It's awesome, right? It's so much fun. The SEC is a lot of fun. It's a huge rivalry game. I think you're seeing a lot of money come in on, from Georgia fans to take Georgia. And by the way, that probably was the right play because this has already opened up. When I looked at it last night, it was 8.5. And now it's 9.5. So it jumped a point in a day already. It's easily probably going to get to double digits because, Nico is a question. It seems like every big game that Nico plays, he has not been playing well in. 2 weeks to prepare last week against Mississippi State, and they ended up winning. I think what this game boils down to, in my opinion, is Carson Beck not wanting to see this Tennessee defensive line. This is one of the best defensive lines in the country. They are brutal. They are ripping O-lines apart right now. And this guy is indecisive. He's making terrible decisions right now. I'm going to take the Volunteers. BP is showing an edge towards them as well. And this, I see this is closer to a 5.5 point game. I'm agreeing. I'm going to take, I'm not the biggest, like when I think a team is going to win, normally I want to take them and lay the points. Georgia, I think, can definitely win this game, but I wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee came in here and won. We've seen all kinds of parity throughout the SEC this year. We saw Arkansas beat Tennessee because they were at home, right? Mm-hmm. So Tennessee is not the best team in the country. I think they're a borderline playoff team.
Yeah,
right?
I think they're overranked in the AP for sure.
I think so too. But I think Georgia probably is too, and I think this game plays a little bit closer than we expected. And it's just, you just never know what you're going to get from Georgia. They're like a box of chocolates, right? As Forrest Gump taught us. You just don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get this bow up where they hold a team like Texas to 15 points at home and cause water bottles to come raining down onto the field? Or are they going to be the team that can barely cover against Florida and a third-string quarterback, or couldn't cover against Florida and a third-string quarterback? So Georgia's not heading in the right direction right now. Only 10 points last week against Ole Miss. I just don't like what we've seen from Carson Beck. So give me Tennessee. and the points.
And you think we can wait on this line, right? If we like Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, you can today, so we'll see if this line opens up and it's too big for most bettors that are getting to it earlier in the week. Maybe the line shifts. We'll see, but right now, cash is flowing towards Georgia. I think people expect Georgia at home to bow up and just beat down Tennessee, and I don't see it.
Yeah, if this line keeps moving in that direction, my advice, just wait till Saturday or at least until Wednesday or Thursday. Usually FanDuel, they'll post a boost for the big campus game of the week, and it's usually a 50% boost, so you could probably even get Tennessee for -110 with that boost at maybe 14 points.
It's a perfect idea.
Yeah, so that's probably how I would play that instead of just, taking it now. So, love that, and hopefully we continue to see that move in that direction, but that'll be one on Saturday I hopefully am down on with that boost. Getting back to the Big Ten, the top-ranked and undefeated Oregon Ducks, they are now 14-point favorites against the Wisconsin Badgers. The Ducks feel like they are firing on absolutely all cylinders right now. They've scored 30-plus points in 7 straight Big Ten games and 9 games overall. Outside of Ohio State, they've outscored those Big Ten opponents 215-67. Wisconsin, they've beat up on some of those teams too, but they also just lost to Iowa by 32 in their last game out, and they're now just 3-6 ATS. Bogman, is it time to ride with Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks while we can get them at 14, or could this line maybe get down to 13.5 later in the week?
I just don't know how, right? I mean, we've seen this. It was a day game, right? But it was Alabama going into Wisconsin, and they just tore apart the Badgers. And I think this team is a better team than we expected. They played well against Penn State, right? Like, you watched that game. What did you see from Wisconsin in that game?
It was scary in the first half. Yeah, their defense was flying around and making plays, and their offense, I think it will always be the question mark, right?
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin has, they've already hosted a big opponent in Alabama. They got smoked. We could easily see the bow up as their biggest game of the season. This is the biggest game of their season, and they're at home, but the offense has been rough. The defense was shredded for 329 rushing yards in their last game against Iowa. Braden Locke has 2 touchdowns and 4 picks in his last 3 games. I think Wisconsin is a team that competes. They compete, right? But they lose to the teams they should lose to, and they beat the teams they should beat. I think it's very black and white for Wisconsin this season, right? 2 weeks in home field advantage is usually enough for me to want to take the points in a game like this. But Wisconsin in their losses, 32 at Iowa, 15 versus Penn State, 17 at USC, 32 at home versus Bama. So when they lose big.
Yeah.
And I think Oregon is just a much better team than Wisconsin is this year. They're down to their backup quarterback. It's not all on them. I do expect a bow up maybe in the first half like the Penn State game, but ultimately I think Oregon covers this game. I think they're too dangerous. They have too many ways to win on offense, and I haven't even touched their defense, which gets Locke, who has had, again, the last 3 weeks, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for Wisconsin in this game. So I just wanted to talk about Oregon because their strength of schedule has not been great. I mean, it's okay, but they really haven't faced anyone that has given them too many problems outside of Ohio State. Boise State did, but that's it, right? No one else has really even come up to them. They just, as the saying goes, they drag you out to deep waters and just drown you. And that's what I expect to happen in this game as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you there. Originally, I was thinking, okay, if I can't get the 13.5, maybe I'll take an alternate total. I don't think I need it. I don't think 14's enough, honestly. So, I like the call there. Let's round out the program in a Big 12 nightcap in Provo, Utah, where the undefeated and 7th-ranked BYU Cougars are now 3.5-point favorites against Kansas. BYU failed to cover last week against Utah, but they do remain 7-2 ATS, with their best wins coming against K-State and SMU early in the season. Kansas, they have now covered in 3 straight on their own, though, and they've moved to 4-5 ATS, including a huge 45-26 win over Iowa State last week. They had over 500 yards of combined offense and no turnovers against one of the country's best defenses. Bogman, the books have really yet to buy into the BYU hype, offering us some really short spreads each and every single week on this Cougars team. Is this a trap, or is this an opportunity to back Jake Retzloff coming off a big win in the Holy War?
Man, my initial instinct when looking at that Kansas and Iowa State game was right. My initial instinct was,
I thought so too.
Man, I kind of like Kansas in this game, but then I did that granular look when we talked with Terrell on Wednesday, and looking a little deeper, and I was like, Kansas is good at these things, but like they're good in the red zone, but they have no red zone opportunities, right?
Yeah.
It was those type of things. But what I really think happened in that game is I think that Iowa State lost to Texas Tech twice, honestly. I think you lose a game like that to Texas Tech to end your undefeated season, your perfect season. You really don't control your destiny in the Big 12 anymore. And then you go on the road. You face, it was in Arrowhead, you face a very good Kansas team that it was overrated coming in, but is now, because of the record, turned to a underrated team. And they beat you. Now, I do think that Kansas might have had a better shot had BYU lost that game, because it would have been the same situation for Iowa State, right? Like, you let a team beat you twice. But not only did BYU not lose that game, they got up off the mat after the penalty. They knew they had to still drive to kick that field goal, and they did it, and they won, which is why I don't think the AD should have been crying for Utah. But, this team has shown us resiliency. They almost lost to Oklahoma State. They came back and won that game. So, to me, whatever BYU is doing, whatever they're cooking up, BYU can be run on. OK State ran for 269, UCF ran for 181, K-State ran for 228, and they all lost to BYU, all of those teams. So you can run on this team, and Kansas is going to try to. Lance Leopold is a great head coach, which is why I'm kind of always leery about betting against Kansas, because I know they can have this type of bow up. But I just think that Provo at night in an undefeated season, BYU had their scare last week. I think they're going to come to play. So I'm going to lay the points and take BYU again.
Okay, and that'll do it for us today on the Betting Pros College Football Show. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. We will be back later in the week with Terrell for our picks and predictions episode. Until then, like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel and podcast feed, plus download the Betting Pros app and sync your sportsbooks today. For Scott Bogman, I am Seth Woolcock. Take care, y'all.